As a young chief, Goose's great-grandfather decided to settle the tribe on the land by the lake. And now, she was the oldest person in the village. Yotter enjoyed working with the tribe's herd, which provided them with milk, meat, and wool for clothing. Elvine, on the other hand, would avoid any kind of work. But the larder was usually bursting with food, so nobody really made a fuss about it. Under Kiyosuke's expert care, the tribe's various crops thrived, filling the silo to the top at each harvest. Cinnamon would spend much time in the village center, carving statues of animals, big and small, while other members of the tribe had fun playing games or telling stories by the fire. Their tribal homes were small and simple, but they provided everything that was needed to live happily and start new families. Every member of the tribe thought life in the village by the lake was perfect, until the day it wasn't. Intruders came out of nowhere without a warning. They attacked mercilessly like a pack of rabid wolves. The villagers fought bravely, but the assailants were just too many. One by one, the defenders were killed or captured. Unbridled, senseless destruction began. Everything happened unimaginably fast. And then, the raiders were gone, leaving a once peaceful village in flames. Such inhumanity. Such injustice. A heavy rain started, almost as if the heavens were weeping over the cruel fate of the tribe. However, fate wasn't entirely cruel that day. That morning, Goose offered to a group of villagers. She would show them a particularly fruitful wild patch, which she found many years ago. It was Cinnamon, Kiyosuke, Yotter, and Elvine who accepted the invitation. Goose's experience didn't disappoint, as the group found a veritable bounty of sweet berries. They picked a great many of them to bring to the village, after feasting on these treats to the point of bursting, of course. But as they were nearing their home, an unfamiliar clamor of battle and destruction had reached their ears. Dropping their cargo, they rushed forward and hid in bushes, observing the horror that had befallen their tribe. As they were unarmed, a reckless charge would only result with their capture as well, so they remained hidden. 4 pairs of eyes filled with impotent tears watched the savage raiders leave, with their chained kinsmen in tow. As soon as they cleared the horizon, our group rushed to the village, hoping to find survivors. But before the ruthless marauders left, they made sure that the wounded incapable of walking were also incapable of receiving any aid. Fearing the raiders' return, they took such weapons and meager supplies as they could collect from the smoldering ruins, and left the only home they've ever known. The first night on the run, they were startled from their sleepless rest by noises advancing toward them through the bushes. Already fearing the worst, They were unexpectedly delighted by the first fortunate event since their nightmare had begun. Several tribal pets ran away during the attack, and, likely following a familiar scent, found them in the middle of the night. Cha-Cha and Fernand kept close to the people, and even though Benji's stubby little terrier legs couldn't keep up the pace, his tireless stamina would make sure he always caught up to the group while they would rest. With their hearts gladdened by the reunion with faithful animals and the sunshine of a new day, the survivors started talking about the future and any possibility to help the taken. It was obvious that only 5 of them, equipped as they were, would pose no challenge to the raiders enjoying superiority in numbers, as well as effectiveness of arms and armor. However, they couldn't imagine leaving loved ones in the brutal hands of their captors, and finally decided to look for a place they could use as a base. There, they would prepare for the rescue mission by getting better equipment and possibly even bolstering their ranks. Although how that would become possible, they didn't have a clear picture of yet. Still, just having a plan was enough to improve the morale, and they pressed on encouraged, with Cha-Cha, Benji, and Fernand at their heels. And while they're traveling, we can use this opportunity to learn more about them. In her venerable age, Goose was equally capable at healing and making various items, and during village feasts, many mouths would look forward to the dishes prepared by her hand. You certainly wouldn't suspect it at first glance, but in her youth she was one of the best fighters of the tribe, and the passage of years did surprisingly little to reduce her combat prowess. In his mature years, Kiyosuke was the most knowledgeable grower of the tribe, and plants expertise has naturally made him a competent herbalist as well. Although he generally preferred the company of Flora, he was always kind to everyone, and while not devoting much of his time to training, he would be far from defenseless in battle. Despite being considered the beauty of the tribe, Cinnamon was a modest girl of simple tastes, when it came to food at least. She was far more interested in the aesthetic side of life, skillfully carving statues or adorning practical items she was equally adept at making. Consequently, she did nothing to improve her combat skills, but her youth and natural agility made sure she wouldn't be a pushover in a fight. Yotter was always hard-working, and while he was proficient in other tasks as well, he enjoyed tending to animals the most. He would often be seen whispering to them, as if conveying secrets he wouldn't want any human ear to hear. Unlike other members of the group, he was very much interested in the art of combat, which meant this young man would likely have an important role in the execution of their rescue plans. And Alvine? Well, I suppose the phrase, an odd egg, wouldn't go amiss here, because this young woman never really showed any particular interest, neither in everyday tasks that needed to be done in the village, nor the people living in it. In fact, the rest of the group were quite surprised when she joined them on the berry-picking trip, and were now puzzled by her seeming lack of distraught in light of their current circumstances. But she was one of the few remaining members of their tribe, and they were happy she was with them, expecting to surely all bond over time. Whether it was destiny or chance that joined these 5, their lives were now intertwined, and they will finish this journey together, triumphing over all odds or perishing in the attempt. On the 3rd day since the destruction of their village, while resting on the bank of a large river, they noticed a natural fort of the sorts, an area that would be easy to defend. Right next to it, some fertile soil for their new crops. There was even a ruin of a building nearby, which they could quickly convert into a shelter for their first few nights. There, they could store what little they had and start preparing for the daunting task they had set upon themselves. But that would come in time. Right now, the priorities were preparation of meals and crafting of the wooden armor for at least some protection. They would have to plant a variety of crops to make their plan possible. Rice for food and taming of the wild animals. Heel root for medicinal purposes. Cotton for the cloth. And hay grass for animal fodder and construction material. To alleviate the terrible stress of their new conditions, they would need ways to entertain themselves. For that, they could rely on the ancestral games of hoopstone and Yotter and Goose were the first to make use of the games. Not even carrying some logs were preventing them from hitting the hoop. The company and familiarity of it were helpful enough. With much construction already planned, they started cutting a nearby grove for wood and putting it to good use. Woodland around their sanctuary was full of game, and fresh meat was already back on the menu, to everyone's delight. Pemmican can keep one going for a long time, for sure, but it will never be in danger of being considered a delicacy. Even though it was already getting dark, our group of survivors was still out, clearing a field and planting the first seeds of rice to get a reliable source of food as soon as possible. They used the opportunity to chat and get to know each other better. Kiyosuke told Cinnamon he could never be attracted to a fat woman because of the risks of suffocation involved, to which she complimented his impeccable judgment, sounding just sincere enough for Kiyosuke to swell with pride. Finally, exhausted by a day of hard work, they fell asleep in the shelter, feeling a modicum of safety for the first time since the destruction of their village. The second day was devoted to the construction of a room, where they would be able to sit at a table together, enjoying both their meals and the companionship. But the room would also serve another vital purpose. There, they would research new ways to protect themselves and learn to create weapons much deadlier than those that were available to them before. It was obvious they would have to match the technology of the invaders if their mission was to have any chance of success. Satisfied with the progress of the room, the group went back to the fields and continued planting, again chatting to lessen the monotony of such work. Cinnamon asked Elvine if she knows how heel root is turned into medicine, to which Elvine said she doesn't, and she has no interest in knowing. Later, Elvine told Goose she can't decide if she would look better in a red or a blue formal shirt, to which Goose replied,
"My dear, I don't understand why you are wondering about such things in this situation. But in any case, I'm far too old to be bothered with any kind of formalities anymore."
Meanwhile, Yotter was away, hunting, because getting leather, which could be turned into numerous useful items, was just as important as food. He might not have been the best bowman, yet, but determination proved to be an adequate substitute for aim, and he almost never came back empty-handed. At the end of the day, they could, for the first time, sit down and enjoy the fruits of their labor. Cinnamon and Kiyosuke's conversation was especially lively, with many smiles and significant looks exchanged, before everyone retired for another night of well-earned rest. Particular circumstances this group has found themselves in perhaps accelerated things which otherwise would take longer to develop. But now aware how abruptly one's entire existence can be forcefully changed, and emboldened by last night's pleasant dialogue, Kiyosuke told Cinnamon, "I admire your contentious, cultured comportment, in spite of our present predicament," hoping to sound cultured enough himself to win her heart. And win it he did, because Cinnamon was pleased by his efforts and attention. Although Kiyosuke's chances were not hurt by the fact she was fully aware the pool of other potential hopefuls included only Yoder, and his distinct aroma of dead animals he would bring from hunt. And now, before you judge them too harshly, remember the horrors that happened only a few days ago. These remnants of a once peace-loving and happy tribe lost everything and found themselves faced with the intimidating task of saving their friends, who have had the luck, or perhaps misfortune, to still be alive. Such circumstances are certainly enough to drive anyone to reckless acts, and not having anything that would tempt the group of visitors to give up their superior weapons by ways of trade, the survivors succumbed to the cold grip of desperation and came up with a certainly deplorable, but undoubtedly clever plan. You clearly see they were not happy about what just happened. Well, most of them at least. Believing they need a permanent reminder and a symbol of hope they will never have to resort to such a deed again, they decided to name themselves the Sad Black Rhino Tribe. 2 excellent bows and a steel axe were their ill-gotten but necessary gains. And being, at the core, decent people, they decided to bury Rhino's victims and maintain the graves as a shrine to their unwitting sacrifice for a noble cause. As an additional benefit, leather from the huge beast enabled them to finish making bedrolls for everyone, so they didn't have to sleep on the cold, hard floor anymore, and could now rest in much greater comfort. And its meat would keep them well fed for days to come, meaning they could start working on tasks not related to food. As a skilled crafter, Cinnamon began making traditional tribal wooden armor. And soon, the first pieces were complete. After several predator attacks on their small animal friends, they decided to provide them the safety of a wooden fence, determined not to allow more harm to come to any member of their tribe. In their mind, that included Little Cha-Cha, Benji, and Fernand, albeit they likely didn't have to worry that the big bear would become prey to anything living around their refuge. Soon, the first harvest of rice came, lifting everyone's spirits, because a full belly is a happy one. And now they could start taming wild muffalos, which were crucial to their plans. Being excellent pack animals, they will carry supplies and gear needed for the success of their objective. Goose, whose age brought her plenty of wisdom, was well suited for the task of research, while Cinnamon's crafty hands continued to produce armor pieces. Kiyosuke gladly used the opportunity to get more protection, and Yoder was especially happy to have it in the midst of wild muffalos, while trying to tame some of them. Seems like one was particularly thrilled by rice, because it followed Yoder home as soon as it discovered this new taste, giving the tribe their first domesticated muffalo. Now that the essentials were taken care of, they could start thinking about getting a bit of comfort. But after the bitter lesson taught by the destruction of their village, they were mindful of the security as well. Not yet having all the materials needed for their traditional homes, they chose to, temporarily, erect a simple building with separate rooms for everyone, protected by walls closing the nearby rock formations into a fort. As the first outcome of her research, Goose showed them how to construct traps and where to place them to enhance the defensive value of the walls. Impatient to stop sleeping in the cramped shelter, they moved their bedrolls first and spent the night in their new barracks, very much enjoying the increase of space. As you might imagine, Cinnamon and Kiyosuke especially enjoyed the increase of privacy as well. But in their haste to move, they forgot the new building was not fenced in. A pack of ferocious ferrets took advantage of their oversight and targeted their gecko companion. Cinnamon and Kiyosuke rushed to the rescue, but the agile attackers were both too quick and too numerous. And that was the end of our colorful little cha-cha. The tribe could only take revenge on the malefactors, and so they did. Cinnamon paid the heaviest price for trying to help Cha-Cha, and Goose had to tend to her many scratches and bites from the feral, minute predators. Sensing something was very wrong, Benji was running and jumping all over the room, yelping and howling with a tiny voice, creating the irresistible impression of mourning the loss of a friend. As it is well known, misfortune never comes alone. Precisely then, warriors of the hostile tribe were spotted in the vicinity, heading straight for their base. With Cinnamon already wounded and the traps not finished, this attack will certainly be a formidable challenge. Next time on Tribal Avengers, Goose turns 83.
Hey, dear Goose.
Happy birthday
to you.
And is gifted with cataracts.
You missed.
Then Yotter gets jealous.
What are you even wearing? That outfit is so last April, May. How can you still be alive like some old everlasting cockroach? Your father was an idiot. He believed in giraffes. Giraffes! Why are you even reading that? Your decrepit brain can't learn anything. You are such a porpoise.
Luckily, Goose's hearing isn't holding up any better than her eyes.
Yacht is such a nice lad. He said I have great purpose.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed our very first ever Rimworld story video. You like my high budget goose costume? Anyways, if you guys did like the video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the like button. Then maybe YouTube would be like, hey, let's share this with everyone, and that'll make it more possible to keep making these videos, because, God, I want to make a lot of them. Thinking about it now, there's so many stories and campaigns we could go into and retell. I'd like to make, well, anyway, that's kind of a story for the future. A story for the future, see? If you guys want to help out directly, links to the PayPal and Patreon down below. Really appreciate any support. The amount of hours we've put into this is mind-boggling, but we're getting better at it, so hopefully we can do more, a little bit more efficiently in the future. Anyways, next episode, I think you guys might like it. Let's just say, where are you going? Where are you going? 3 dots gone. All right, that's it. Let's just say Goose does something amazing. But until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. You're getting your carrot.